There's a lot of different ways to manipulate text in Excel, and sometimes it can be the most confusing thing because most of us are used to just running formulas like sum and creating tables and maybe charts and graphs. But when you're working with text, sometimes it can be very difficult to figure out, how do I get last name, first name in separate columns? And how do I get first name, last name? And there's a lot of different ways of doing the same thing in Excel. There's a new formula out there called text join. I've got a video out there about that if you're interested. It's a little bit easier than the process that we're using. However, one of the ways that we will use concatenate is not just to move names around and put them in different columns, but also to create an email address for every single employee. What if this is all the information we've got? What if somebody says, all right, I want the text to column function, I want last name and first name in different cells, then I want contact names in one cell, and I also want to make sure that I have email addresses for everybody in our company. So these names not only have to be manipulated, but we want to be able to create an email address after it. That's one of the cool things about concat, especially when you're dealing with large amounts of data. So the very first thing that we're going to do is use the text to column function to place the last name and first name in different cells. So when we come up here, let me scroll up to the top here. Let's say I come over to last name, first name. I've got last name here and first name here. If I come up to the data tab and I decide, all right, I'm going to use text to columns and separate these out. The first thing that I'm going to do is select all of the names. Okay, select the names. And then I'm going to go up to text to columns. I'm on the data tab. Text to columns. What this is going to allow me to do is to separate the names into two separate columns. So I'm going to follow through. I have the delimited checked because I have commas in between. I'm going to click next, and sometimes you'll see that the wizard is on the tab section, and when you look at it, it doesn't look right. Well, that's because we're separated by commas and spaces. So we'll undo tab, and I can start to see, okay, this is what it's going to look like, and that works for me. I'm going to click next. Now in text to columns, we need to let Excel know where the data is going. And remember, we're taking the data from one cell and splitting it into two. So up here where it says destination, I'm going to collapse that so I'm better able to select the range that my data is going to go into. Like that. All right, now I'm just going to delete that and get it out of our way here in a moment. But when I come up here, basically, I've just now told Excel, separate at the comma and put it into two distinct columns. When I click on finish, you'll see, okay, I've got that done. That's good to go. I've got last name and first name and no commas. So that's text to columns. But concatenate is going to allow me to work to such a way that I can have the first name, last name, and email addresses. So when we come back here, we need first name, last name, and say, okay, well, I want contact names together in a cell. Or I would use concatenate to separate and put first name and last name. Now, of course, you could swap these out and say, I just want to copy this column and put it before the last name column and make my life easy. Sure, you could totally do that. But this is kind of a way of looking at concatenate as a quick and easy reference point to do some of these things, especially if you're dealing with a huge database of names. All right, so very first thing I'm going to do is do equals, because so Excel knows, okay, we're about to do a formula. And if I start keying in CON, you can see that I get a list of potential functions that I can use. So I'm looking for concatenate, so I'm going to double click on that. Now, concatenate is easier to work through if you use the wizard, if you work through the function argument box, because we might not know, okay, we're doing this and then we're doing that, and what are we doing? Let's come up here and click on FX. This will walk you through exactly what we're trying to string together. All right, so text one, let's say I want the contact names. I want Kim first, Kim's in C3, and then I want Kim's last name. All right, in text two. Now I want you to look down here. See how the names are crammed together? And you're like, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm looking for. Let me show you a quick and easy trick. In the second piece, we're going to delete the last name. And we're going to tell Excel we want a space between the names. Anytime there isn't a cell reference with data in it that Excel can refer to, we need to add it in there. So the way that we do that is we hold down Shift and we use a quotation mark. Now, what I want to do is let Excel know that anything between the quotation marks is what I'm looking for. In this case, space. I'm going to hit the space bar and I'm going to close it up with another quotation mark. Now I want text 3 to be the last name. So I'm going to click on the last name. Notice now down here it says Kim space Abercrombie. There is a space, and that's because we told Excel to add it. Now, if you forget to put the space in there, let's say, and you just are like, all right, I remember the quotation marks, it's essentially like having nothing in there. But Excel needs to know what's between those quotation marks, so I'm going to put the space and then OK. So I will click OK, and I will drag it down and go from there, and it will autofill all of the names. So there we have concatenate, which brings together two different cells in the order that we want it in, which is great because that gives us the opportunity to sort of swap some of these things around, and notice there are no commas in between, which is great. But what if I just want first name, last name? Can I use concatenate? What if that column was how the spreadsheet came to me? Let's say the contact names were just like this column right here. How do I get this to first name and last name? You can use concatenate again, only this time we're not adding two pieces of text or space, we're just adding one. This is super simple. If I click equals and then concatenate and I go, okay, I know it's down here, I don't have to know how to spell it. I can come up here and say, all right, well, I just want the first name. That's it. I just want the first name here and then the last name over there. So you can say, oh, I just want, Kim, or I just want Kim, Kim Abercrombie, and I just want the first name and that's it, okay? So now that I still have all this data here, I can say, okay, I want the first name and I want the last name. And how do I then do that? You can do it a couple different ways. You could say, all right, well, I want to text to column. I could certainly do that. Or I can utilize the text that I have there already. In this case, I have the first name and then I click OK. All right, so now I've got the first name and the last name. If you wanted to do it that way, you certainly could. But here's the coolest thing, and this is something that will be just a huge time saver for you. And always remember that you don't want to delete anything that is tied to a formula. You want to copy and paste special where you want it to go, because that will tell Excel, I don't want the formulas in there. And anything that the formulas refer to, I can go ahead and delete. All right. Basically, when we're dealing with the email addresses, I want to use first name underscore last name at stormwind.com or at abccompany.com and so on. So the way that we do this, and this is so cool, this will save you so much time, is we're going to start with the concatenate. So we're going to come down here and say, all right, I know I want to combine some information, but I also want to add some information that I don't already have there. And I know I can actually do that with quotation marks. I'm going to come up here and go to the function argument box. Now, the very first thing that I want is either the first name, okay, and then the last name. If I want a space in between, I have to separate them out. That's why sometimes when you have that text to column, it's a little bit easier to work with. So don't delete all your data until you've got everything the way that you want it, and then you can copy and paste special. So in this case, I want first name. All right, so that's Kim. And I want underscore last name. So in text 2, I'm going to start with the first quotation mark. Then I'm going to get that underscore in there. And then I'm going to put another quotation mark. It kind of looks like you're having a bad day at the office emoji, but that's what it is. It tells Excel, I want an underscore between text 1 and, in this case, text 3. So I'll click down in text 3. So now it's basically, if you look at the equals at the bottom, it says Kim underscore Abercrombie. But I also want an email address in there. So I'm going to start with quotations because I don't have an @ symbol anywhere that I can reference in this formula. So I'm going to do quotation marks @ and then the very last text is going to be your company name. So I will do this, stormwind.com. Oops. Can't type and talk at the same time. All right, stormwind.com. Now, if I click off of this, because it needs to lock in so you can click above, what you'll see down at the bottom here is Kim_Abercrombie at stormwind.com. Is that what I want? Absolutely. So now what I can do is click and drag and copy that formula all the way down until I have every single person's email address based on a set function. I mean, can you imagine having to do this for every single person in your organization, where you click on each individual cell and insert an underscore and then an at yourcompany.com? I mean, sure, you could copy and paste at.com all you want to, but you still have to go through each individual cell. Now, remember, we've done a lot with concatenate, which means we've got formulas all over this spreadsheet. If I just want to oversimplify it and just copy and paste it as text, I'd want to make sure that I copy it and then I paste special. When you go to paste special, choose values, because that basically tells Excel, I don't want you to paste the formulas in here. I just want you to paste the email addresses or the names. And Excel looks at that and says, okay. Once you do that, you can go back through and delete any of the data that Excel was referencing in the formulas, because now the formulas don't exist. And that way, you now have a spreadsheet that you can work with fairly quickly, fairly easily. Concatenate is a great formula. It does a lot of things. It allows you to build out data or add additional information to whatever data you're working with. And especially with text, a lot of text formulas are really designed to help make this process easier. It wouldn't be the very first time that somebody sent you a spreadsheet with last name, comma, first name, and said, hey, I want first name and last name, and then I need email addresses for everybody. So I'm very hopeful that at least this particular video helped you do something much faster and much easier. Like, this is so much easier than trying to go through and do it step by step by step. So I'm hoping that that helped you.